The morning sun rose over New Haven Colony just like it had for the past 50 years. The golden light spread across the farming fields where corn and wheat grew tall and strong. Children walked to school along the dirt paths, their backpacks bouncing as they ran to catch up with friends. Jake Mitchell stood on the observation deck of the colony's main building. He watched the peaceful scene below and smiled. As the colony's defense commander, his job was to keep these people safe. Most days, that meant checking security systems and making sure the single patrol ship was running well. New Haven was not. A military base. It was home to 50,000 people who came here to build a better life. Farmers worked the land. Teachers taught the children. Doctors helped the sick. Engineers kept the machines running. They were ordinary people who wanted to live in peace. The colony sat on the edge of human space, far from Earth. But the people here did not feel alone. They had friends among the stars. The Zephyrians were tall, thin aliens with blue skin and kind eyes. They had been trading with humans for over 100 years. Many Zephyrians lived in New Haven alongside the human families. Lisa Carter was one of the scientists who worked with the Zephyrians. She studied the plants and animals on this world. Her research partner was a Zephyrian named Veltar. They had worked together for 5 years and had become good friends. Lisa's son Danny was 8 years old. He played with both human and Zephyrian children at school. To him, there was no difference between them. They were all just kids who liked to play games and learn new things. That morning, Lisa walked Danny to school, as she did every day. The boy chatted about his plans for the weekend. He wanted to go fishing in the lake with his friend Kixmore, a young Zephyrian who lived next door. "Can we invite Veltar to come with us?" Danny asked. "He knows where all the best fish are." Lisa laughed. "I'm sure he would love to come. But remember, he has work to do too." They reached the school where dozens of children were playing in the yard. Human and Zephyrian kids ran around together, their laughter filling the air. Lisa hugged her son goodbye and watched him run off to join his friends at the research station. Lisa met with Veltar to review their latest findings. They had discovered a new type of flower that could grow in very dry soil. This could help other colonies that struggled with farming. "The Council will be pleased with this discovery," Veltar said in his soft voice. "It will help many worlds." "That's what we're here for," Lisa replied. "To make life better for everyone." Meanwhile, Jake Mitchell was in the command center checking the daily reports. The patrol ship had completed its sweep of the local area. All trade routes were clear. No unusual activity had been detected. The colony's relationship with the Zephyrians made Jake's job easier. The aliens were peaceful by nature. They solved problems by talking, not fighting. Their presence in human space had made the galaxy a safer place. Captain Ben Rogers was flying his merchant ship toward New Haven. The Aurora's Dream was loaded with supplies for the colony. He made this run every few months and always looked forward to visiting New Haven. The people there were friendly and welcoming God as Ben's ship traveled through space. He thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was studying to become a doctor. He worked hard to pay for her education, making long trips between colonies to deliver goods. Back on New Haven, the afternoon brought its usual activities. Children attended classes where they learned about math, science, and the history of human expansion into space. They also learned about other alien species and how to communicate with them. In the medical center, Dr. Helen Price treated both human and Zephyrian patients. The aliens rarely got sick, but when they did, human medicine often helped them. She had saved many lives over the years. The farming crews worked in the fields, harvesting crops that would feed the colony through the winter. The work was hard, but rewarding. These people took pride in growing food that kept their community alive. In the evening, families gathered for dinner. The Zephyrians who lived in the colony often joined their human neighbors for meals. They shared stories and laughed together. Children played games that mixed human and Zephyrian traditions. Lisa tucked Danny into bed that night. The boy was tired from a full day of school and play. He mumbled sleepily about the fishing trip he was planning. "Mom, do you think we'll always live here?" Danny asked. "I hope so," Lisa said. "This is our home." Jake Mitchell made his final security check of the day. The scanners showed nothing unusual. The patrol ship was docked and ready for tomorrow's mission. The colony's shields were at full power, though they had never been needed for defense. As Jake prepared to go home to his wife and daughter, he felt satisfied with another peaceful day. New Haven was proof that different species could live together in harmony. It was a model for the future of the galaxy, not far beyond the edge of the solar system. Something moved in the darkness of space. A massive fleet of ships traveled toward New Haven, their hulls black as the void between stars. These ships belonged to the Kroner Dominion, an empire that had conquered 17 civilizations in the past 10 years. The Kroner were different from the Zephyrians. They did not believe in peace or cooperation. They saw other species as weak and worthless. Their leader, War Commander Thekmer, had ordered the destruction of every non-Kroner life form in this sector of space. The Kroner had studied New Haven from a distance. They knew about the humans and Zephyrians living together. They knew about the children playing in the streets. They knew about the peaceful daily life of the colony. But the Kroner did not care about peace. They had made their decision. Every living thing on New Haven would die. The attack would begin at dawn. The colony slept peacefully that night, unaware of the approaching danger. Parents tucked their children into bed. Workers rested after another day of honest labor. Guards kept watch over empty skies. In a few hours, everything would change. The peaceful life of New Haven would end in horror. The galaxy would learn that not all species believed in cooperation and friendship. The Kroner fleet moved closer through the darkness, ready to bring death to the innocent. People below. The massacre that would change everything was about to begin. The sun had barely risen when the first blast hit New Haven. Jake Mitchell was drinking his morning coffee when the building shook so hard that his cup fell to the floor. The lights went out. Emergency alarms began screaming throughout the colony. Jake ran to the command center, but the screens were all dead. The electromagnetic pulse from the Kroner ships had destroyed every computer, every radio, every communication device in the colony. New Haven was cut off from the rest of the galaxy. "What's happening?" asked Lieutenant Sam Torres, Jake's second in command. "We're under attack," Jake said. He grabbed his weapon and ran outside. Above them, the sky was filled with enormous black ships. They were bigger than anything Jake had ever seen. Their weapons glowed with deadly red light. The colony's shields flickered and failed. The power generators had been hit by the electromagnetic pulse. Without shields, New Haven was defenseless against the massive fleet above. Jake tried to reach his patrol ship, but it was already destroyed. A beam of red energy had melted it into twisted metal. His small defense force was gone before they could even fight back. The Kroner ships did not destroy the colony quickly. Instead, they began landing troops on the surface. Hundreds of shuttles descended from the fleet like deadly insects. The aliens inside were tall and covered in thick, dark armor. They carried weapons that could kill from great distances. War Commander Thekmer stood on the bridge of his flagship. He watched the landing operation with cold satisfaction. The humans and Zephyrians below would not die quickly. His orders were specific: make them suffer before they die. The first Kroner soldiers reached the colony's main street. They did not shoot at the buildings or try to capture territory. Instead, they began hunting for people. Men, women, and children ran in terror as the aliens chased them through the streets. Lisa Carter was at the research station when the attack began. She saw the Kroner ships landing and knew immediately that everyone was in terrible danger. Her first thought was of Danny at school. "We have to get the children," she told Veltar. The Zephyrian was trembling with fear. His people had never faced warriors like the Kroner. "My people, we do not fight," Veltar said. "We do not know how to fight. Then we run," Lisa said. "We save who we can." But when they reached the school, it was already surrounded by Kroner soldiers. Lisa could hear the children screaming inside. She tried to get closer, but Veltar held her back. "You cannot help them if you are dead," he said. Lisa watched in horror as the Kroner dragged children from the school. They separated the human and Zephyrian kids into different groups. The soldiers seemed to enjoy the fear on the young faces. One of the Kroner officers spoke into a recording device. He was making a video of everything that happened. The aliens wanted other species to see what they did to New Haven. Jake Mitchell tried to organize the remaining security forces, but it was hopeless. The Kroner had too many soldiers and too many weapons. His men were killed one by one as they tried to defend the CIVINS. Dr. Helen Price was at the medical center when the Kroner found her. She was treating wounded people who had been hurt. In the first attack, the aliens destroyed her equipment and medicine first. Then they dragged the patients outside. "Please," Dr. Price begged. "These people need help. Let me treat them." The Kroner commander laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "We want them to suffer," he said in broken human language. "That is the point." Captain Ben Rogers was still in space when he received the distress signal from New Haven. But the signal was not from the colony's communication system. It was from the Kroner themselves. They were broadcasting what they were doing to anyone who could receive it. Ben watched the transmission in shock. The images showed Kroner soldiers herding civilians into groups. Families were torn apart. Parents were forced to watch as their children were taken away. "This is Captain Rogers of the Aurora's dream," Ben said into his radio. "New Haven is under attack. Repeat, New Haven is under attack." But there was no one close enough to help. The nearest human military base was days away. By the time help could arrive, it would be too late. The Kroner continued their brutal work. They did not simply kill people quickly. They made death slow and painful. They wanted every scream to be recorded for their broadcast. War Commander Thakmer appeared on the transmission. He spoke directly to the camera, knowing that humans throughout the galaxy would see his words. "This is what happens to inferior species," he said. "You humans think you are strong because you have ships and weapons. But you are weak. You care about others. You try to protect the helpless. This makes you easy to defeat." Lisa Carter managed to reach the underground storage areas beneath the research station. She found a place where Danny could hide. The boy was crying and shaking with fear. "Mom, what's happening?" he asked. "Bad people came to our home," Lisa said, "but you have to be brave. Stay here and don't make any noise. I'll come back for you." "Don't leave me," Danny begged. Lisa's heart broke, but she had to go. Other people needed help. She kissed her son and promised to return. It was the last time she would see him alive. The Kroner found the hiding place 2 days later. They killed everyone inside, including the children. Danny Carter died calling for his mother. The massacre continued for 3 days. The Kroner took their time, making sure every death was recorded. They wanted the galaxy to see what happened. When someone opposed the Kroner Dominion, Veltar died protecting a group of human children. The gentle scientist had never hurt anyone in his life, but he fought the Kroner soldiers with his bare hands. They killed him slowly for his defiance. Dr. Helen Price was executed in front of the medical center. The Kroner made sure her death was particularly cruel because she had tried to help the wounded. Jake Mitchell was captured alive. The Kroner commander wanted to make an example of him. They tortured him for hours while the cameras recorded everything. Even in his final moments, Jake refused to beg for mercy. By the third day, New Haven was silent. 50,000 people had lived there. Now there were none. The Kroner had killed every human and Zephyrian in the colony. Men, women, children, elderly people, none were spared. The buildings still stood, but they were empty. The farming fields were soaked with blood. The school playground where children had laughed and played was now a graveyard. War Commander Thakmar made a final broadcast from the ruins of New Haven. He stood among the bodies of the dead and spoke to the galaxy. "This is the fate of all. Inferior species," he said. "We are the Kroner Dominion. We will cleanse the galaxy of your weakness. Your colonies will burn. Your children will die. Your species will be forgotten." Then the Kroner fleet departed, leaving behind only death and destruction. They had accomplished their goal. The peaceful colony of New Haven was gone forever. Captain Ben Rogers received the final transmission. He watched War Commander Thakmar standing among the bodies of innocent people. The sight burned itself into his memory. Ben immediately changed course for Earth. Someone had to tell the human government what had happened. Someone had to show them the recordings of the massacre. The galaxy had learned a terrible lesson. Not all species believed in peace and cooperation. Some believed only in death and destruction. The Kroner Dominion had declared war on all other life in the universe. New Haven was just the beginning. The images from New Haven reached Earth 7 days after the massacre. Captain Ben Rogers had pushed his ship to its limits, flying faster than was safe. He knew that every human in the galaxy needed to see what the Kroner had done. The recordings were played on every news channel, every communication network, every screen in human space. People watched in horror as the Kroner soldiers hunted down children. They saw families torn apart. They heard the screams of the innocent president. Ryan Clark sat in his office, watching the footage for the 10th time. Each viewing made him angrier. The Kroner had not simply attacked a human colony. They had tortured and murdered defenseless people for entertainment. How many people lived on New Haven? He asked his assistant. 50,000, sir. All dead. The president closed his eyes. 50,000 people. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children. All killed because the Kroner believed they were superior to other species. Admiral Kate Sullivan was in the middle of a training exercise when she received the emergency call. She rushed to Earth's military headquarters and watched the New Haven. Recordings with growing fury. Kate had been a soldier for 30 years. She had seen combat and death, but nothing had prepared her for the cruelty of the Kroner. These aliens did not fight with honor. They enjoyed causing pain and suffering. "What are your orders, ma'am?" asked Colonel Pete Johnson. "Get me every ship captain in the fleet," Kate said. "We're going to war." The Terran Council met in emergency session. Representatives from every human world gathered to discuss the threat. The debate was short and angry. "The Kroner have declared war on our entire species," said Senator Nancy White. "They will not stop with New Haven. They will come for every one of our colonies. We must respond with force," said General Mike Brown. "If we do nothing, they will see us as weak." President Clark addressed the council. "The Kroner believe they can terrorize us into submission. They think that by killing our children, they can break our will to fight. They are wrong." The vote was unanimous. The Terran Defense Fleet would be expanded and equipped with humanity's most powerful weapons. The mission was simple: find the Kroner Dominion and destroy it completely. Dr. Amy Foster was the Director of Military Research and Development. She had spent her career creating weapons that were too dangerous to use. Now, for the first time, she was ordered to make them ready for war. "We have technology that has been banned for 200 years, she told Admiral Sullivan. Weapons that can destroy entire planets. Biological agents that can kill every living thing on a world. We stopped using them because they were too cruel. The Kroner changed the rules," Kate replied. "They showed us what real cruelty looks like. Now we show them what happens when you threaten humanity." The shipyards of Earth worked around the clock. New warships were built every day. Old ships were upgraded with the latest weapons. The peaceful merchant fleet was converted into military transports. Every human world contributed to the war effort. Mining colonies stripped their planets of metal and minerals. Industrial worlds built weapons and ammunition. Agricultural worlds grew food for the expanding military. The recruitment centers were flooded with volunteers. Young men and women lined up to join the military. They had seen the images from New Haven. They wanted revenge for the murdered children. Captain Steve Johnson was one of the first to volunteer. He had been a merchant captain like Ben Rogers, but the massacre changed him. He wanted to fight the aliens who had killed innocent people. "I've seen what they do to civilians," Steve told the recruitment officer. "I want to make them pay for it." Lieutenant Commander Rachel Green was a military engineer. She had designed defensive systems for human colonies. Now she was building weapons that could tear apart Kroner ships. "We're not just defending anymore," she told her team. "We're going to hunt them down and destroy them." The transformation of human society was complete within 6 months. The peaceful civilization that had traded with aliens and built farming colonies was gone. In its place was a military machine focused on one goal: the destruction of the Kroner. Dominion. Admiral Sullivan commanded the largest fleet in human history. Over 2,000 warships gathered near Earth. Each one carried weapons that could level entire cities. The crews were trained for one purpose: to kill Kroner. The fleet included ships that had never been seen before. Planet-killer vessels that could destroy entire worlds. Biological warfare ships that could spread deadly diseases. Weapons designed to cause maximum suffering to the enemy. Intelligence reports located the first Kroner target, Morthax Station. This was the military base, where the fleet that attacked New Haven had been launched. It was home to thousands of Kroner soldiers and their families. "This is where they planned the massacre," Admiral Sullivan told her captains. "This is where they celebrated the murder of our children. We will show them what justice looks like." The human fleet prepared to depart. The ships were loaded with weapons and supplies. The crews were ready for battle. But this would not be a battle in the traditional sense. This would be an execution. President Clark gave the final order. "You have full authority to use any means necessary to destroy the Kroner threat. Show no mercy. Take no prisoners. End this war completely." As the fleet prepared to leave, Captain Ben Rogers watched from the space station above Earth. His ship had been converted into a military vessel. He would carry supplies to the front lines. The sight of the massive fleet filled him with satisfaction. The Kroner thought they could terrorize humanity into submission. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The recordings from New Haven were broadcast one final time before the fleet departed. Every human soldier watched the images of murdered children and tortured families. They listened to War Commander Thakmer's threats. "Remember New Haven," Admiral Sullivan said over the fleet communication system. "Remember what they did to our people. Remember why we fight." The fleet began moving toward Kroner space. 2,000 ships carrying the fury of an entire species. The Kroner had awakened something in humanity that had been sleeping for centuries. They had turned a peaceful civilization into a weapon of war. The aliens had broadcast their massacre across the galaxy to intimidate other species. Now humanity would broadcast their response. The Kroner would learn that some species fight back when threatened. The journey to Morthek Station would take 3 weeks. During that time, the human crews prepared for battle. They studied Kroner tactics and technology. They practiced with their new weapons. They thought about the innocent people who had died on New Haven. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Retribution. The ship was armed with weapons that could crack a planet in half. Its mission was simple: destroy every Kroner in the galaxy. "How long until we reach the target?" she asked. 18 days, Admiral," replied the navigation officer. Kate nodded. 18 days until the Kroner learned what it meant to fight humanity. 18 days until the massacre at New Haven was avenged. The fleet moved through space like a dark storm. Behind them, Earth began building even more ships. The war against the Kroner would not end until every last one of them was dead. Humanity had been peaceful for centuries. They had traded with aliens and built colonies where different species lived together. But the Kroner had shown them that peace was not enough. Sometimes survival required war. The massacre at New Haven had changed everything. The gentle humans who had tried to be friends with the galaxy were gone. In their place was something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. The Kroner would soon discover what they had unleashed. The Terran Defense Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Morthek system. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the Kroner station grow larger on the main screen. This was the military base where the New Haven massacre had been planned. "All ships report status," Kate ordered. One by one, the 2,000 ship captains confirmed they were ready for battle. The fleet stretched across space like a wall of death. Each vessel carried weapons that had never been used in combat before. Captain Steve Johnson commanded the dreadnought Vengeance. The ship was armed with gravitational weapons that could tear apart enemy vessels at the molecular level. His crew was eager to test them on Kroner targets. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the station," reported the communications officer. "Put it through," Kate said. The image of a Kroner commander appeared on the screen. He was tall and covered in thick, dark armor. His eyes were cold and cruel, just like the aliens who had murdered the children of New Haven. "Human ships, you are in Kroner space," the alien said. "Leave immediately or be destroyed." Kate smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found her prey. "This is Admiral Sullivan of the Terran Defense Fleet," she said. "I have a message for you. You killed 50,000 innocent people on New Haven. You tortured children. You broadcast their deaths across the galaxy. Now you will learn what that means." The Kroner commander laughed. "You humans are weak. You care too much about others. This makes you easy to defeat." "We'll see about that," Kate said. She cut the transmission and turned to her weapons officer. "All ships open fire." The battle began, but it was not really a battle. It was an execution. The human weapons, developed over centuries, but never used in war, proved devastatingly effective. The Kroner shields were useless against humanity's newest plasma cannons. The Vengeance fired its gravitational weapons at a Kroner destroyer. The enemy ship twisted and bent as the fabric of space around it was distorted. Metal screamed as the vessel was torn apart from the inside out. "Direct hit," reported Captain Johnson. "Target destroyed." Other human ships used different weapons. Some fired beams of pure energy that could melt through any armor. Others launched missiles that could track their targets across entire star systems. The Kroner fleet tried to fight back, but they were badly outnumbered. Their weapons, designed for intimidating weaker species, were no match for humanity's advanced technology. Within an hour, every Kroner ship in the system was destroyed. The station itself was defenseless. Admiral Sullivan ordered the boarding. Parties to prepare for assault. Lieutenant Commander Rachel. Green led the first wave of human soldiers onto Morthek Station. She had volunteered for this mission because she wanted to look into the eyes of the aliens who had killed human children. The Kroner defenders fought desperately, but they were not used to facing an enemy that fought back. Their tactics were designed for terrorizing civilians, not battling trained soldiers. Rachel and her team fought their way through the station's corridors. They found the command center where the New Haven attack had been planned. The walls were covered with images of the massacre. The Kroner had kept pictures of their victims as trophies. "Look at this," said Sergeant Jim Davis. He pointed to a display showing the children who had been killed at New Haven. They were proud of what they did. Rachel felt a cold anger fill her heart. These aliens had enjoyed murdering innocent people. They had celebrated the deaths of children. "Take prisoners," she ordered. "We're going to give them the same treatment they gave our people." The human soldiers captured dozens of Kroner survivors. For the first time, the aliens experienced the fear and helplessness they had inflicted on others. They were separated from their families. They were forced to watch as their companions were interrogated. War Commander Thagmer was found in his private quarters. He was the alien who had personally supervised the New Haven massacre. He was the one who had stood among the bodies of dead children and threatened all of humanity. "You cannot do this," he said as the human soldiers dragged him away. "I am a military officer. I have rights." "So did the children you killed," Rachel replied, "but you didn't care about their rights." The interrogation of the Kroner prisoners was broadcast across their space, just as they had broadcast the New Haven massacre. The aliens were forced to confess their crimes. They were made to describe in detail what they had done to human families. Some of the Kroner broke down and begged for mercy. Others remained defiant, claiming they had done nothing wrong. It did not matter. Their fate was already decided. Captain Johnson stood in the station's main hangar, watching as the Kroner bodies were loaded onto cargo ships. The aliens had been executed one by one, just as they had executed the humans on New Haven. "How many did we kill?" he asked. "All of them," Rachel replied. "Every Kroner on this station is dead." The destruction of Morthek Station was recorded and broadcast throughout the galaxy. The message was clear. Humanity would respond to genocide with genocide, to cruelty with cruelty. But the war was far from over. Intelligence reports identified dozens of other Kroner military bases. Each one would be destroyed in turn. The human fleet split into smaller groups to attack multiple targets at once. Admiral Sullivan led the main fleet toward the Kroner industrial world of Kortheron. This planet manufactured the weapons used in the New Haven massacre. It was home to millions of Kroner, civilians who supported their government's genocidal policies. The planet's defenders tried to negotiate when they saw the human fleet approaching. They offered to surrender in exchange for their lives. They promised to stop attacking human colonies. Kate listened to their pleas with cold satisfaction. "You had the chance to be peaceful," she replied. "You chose genocide instead. Now you face the consequences." The human fleet surrounded Kortheron. They did not simply destroy the planet quickly. Instead, they began a systematic bombardment that would last for days. The Kroner civilians experienced the same terror that the humans on New Haven had felt. The planetary shields failed under the constant barrage. Cities burned as plasma weapons rained down from orbit. The industrial facilities that had built weapons for the Kroner military were reduced to molten slag. Dr. Amy Foster watched the destruction from her ship's observation deck. She had designed many of the weapons being used in the attack. For the first time in her career, she felt satisfaction in seeing her creations used. "This is what they deserve," she told her assistant. "They wanted to exterminate other species. Now they know how it feels." The bombardment continued for 3 days. When it was over, Corthran was a dead world. The planet that had once housed millions of Kroner civilians was now a smoking ruin. Other human fleets achieved similar victories throughout Kroner space. Military bases were destroyed. Industrial worlds were burned. Colonies were wiped out. The Kroner Dominion was being systematically dismantled. The aliens who had once terrorized the galaxy now lived in fear. Their own broadcasts showed human ships appearing without warning and destroying everything in their path. The species that had seemed so weak and peaceful had become the most dangerous force in the universe. Some Kroner tried to flee to distant systems, but human ships hunted them down. There would be no escape for the species that had chosen genocide. Every last one of them would pay for what they had done to New Haven. The war continued for months. Human forces grew stronger as more ships were built and more weapons were developed. The peaceful civilization that had once traded with aliens was gone forever. In its place was a military machine dedicated to extinction. Admiral Sullivan received regular reports from across the battle zones. Everywhere, human forces were winning. The Kroner had awakened something in humanity that they could not defeat. How many of them are left? She asked her intelligence officer. Perhaps 1 billion, Admiral. Maybe less. Kate nodded. 1 billion Kroner still lived, but not for long. The human fleet was closing in on their homeworld. Soon, the species that had massacred New Haven would be nothing but a memory. The galaxy watched in fear as humanity demonstrated its true power. Other alien species realized that the peaceful humans they had known were gone. The massacre at New Haven had changed everything. The final battle for the Kroner homeworld was about to begin. When it was over, the galaxy would have learned a terrible lesson about the price of threatening humanity's children. 3 years after the massacre at New Haven, the human fleet finally reached the Kroner homeworld of Thakanur. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Retribution, looking at the planet that had given birth to the species that murdered her people. The human fleet had grown to over 5,000 ships. Every world in human space had contributed to the war effort. Peaceful farming colonies had become weapon factories. Trading stations had been converted into military bases. The entire civilization had focused on one goal: the complete destruction of the Kroner Dominion. How many Kroner are left on the planet? Kate asked her intelligence officer. Approximately 3 billion, Admiral. It's their last major population center. Kate nodded. 3 billion aliens who had supported the genocide of human children. 3 billion creatures who had cheered when the images of New Haven's destruction were broadcast across their empire. The Kroner homeworld was heavily defended. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the planet. Thousands of warships patrolled the space around Thakanur. The aliens had gathered their remaining forces for one final battle, but the human fleet was ready. Captain Steve Johnson commanded a squadron of planet-killer vessels. These ships carried weapons that could crack a world in half. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Green led the boarding teams that would capture any survivors. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan, Kate announced over the fleet communication system. Today, we end the war. Today, we avenge New Haven. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity's children. The battle began with a massive exchange of fire. The Kroner orbital platforms launched thousands of missiles at the human fleet. Their weapons lit up space like deadly fireworks. But the humans had learned from 3 years of warfare. Their shields were stronger. Their weapons were more accurate. Their tactics were perfected through dozens of battles. The Vengeance fired its gravitational weapons at a Kroner battle station. The massive structure twisted and collapsed as space itself was distorted around it. Debris rained down on the planet below. Other human ships used different weapons. Some deployed biological agents that could kill every living thing on a world. Others fired plasma beams that could melt through any defense. The technology that had been banned for centuries was finally being used. The Kroner fought desperately. They knew that defeat meant extinction. Their homeworld was all they had left. If Thakener fell, their species would disappear forever. War Commander Thigmer, the alien who had personally supervised the New Haven massacre, commanded the planetary defense. He had escaped from several human attacks over the past 3 years. This time, there would be no escape. All units, fight to the death, he ordered. Do not let the humans take our world. But the Kroner were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, their defensive positions were destroyed. The orbital platforms were reduced to floating wreckage. The patrol fleets were wiped out by superior human firepower. Captain Johnson's squadron moved into position above the planet. The planet killer weapons were charged and ready. These devices could destabilize a world's core, causing it to tear itself apart from the inside. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," reported the communications officer. Kate smiled coldly. "Put it through." War Commander Thigmer appeared on the screen. The alien who had once stood among the bodies of dead human children now looked desperate and afraid. His armor was damaged from the battle. His cold eyes showed fear for the first time. "Admiral Sullivan," he said, "I request a meeting to discuss terms of surrender." "Terms?" Kate laughed. It was a harsh sound that made her bridge crew uncomfortable. "You want to discuss terms? Tell me, what terms did you offer the children of New Haven?" That was different, Thigmer said. "We were at war." "No," Kate replied. "You were murdering innocent people. You tortured children for entertainment. You broadcast their deaths across the galaxy to intimidate other species. There are no terms. There is only justice." The Kroner commander's face twisted with rage. "You cannot destroy an entire species. The other aliens will turn against you. They will see you as monsters." "Let them," Kate said. "You made the choice to genocide our people. Now you face the consequences. You showed our children no mercy. You will receive none from us." She cut the transmission and turned to Captain Johnson. "Begin the bombardment." The planet killer weapons fired simultaneously. Beams of pure energy struck Thakener's surface, penetrating deep into the planet's core. The world began to shake as its foundation was destroyed, but the humans did not simply destroy the planet quickly. They had learned cruelty from the Kroner themselves. The bombardment was designed to cause maximum suffering before death. Cities burned as plasma weapons rained down from orbit. The Kroner civilians experienced the same terror that the humans on New Haven had felt. They ran through the streets as buildings collapsed around them. Rachel Green led boarding parties to the planet's surface. Her mission was to capture War Commander Thigmer alive. The alien who had murdered human children would not die quickly. The human soldiers fought through the burning cities. The Kroner defenders were desperate, but they could not stop the assault. Their weapons were no match for humanity's advanced technology. Rachel found Thigmer in his command bunker, trying to coordinate the hopeless defense. When he saw the human soldiers, he reached for his weapon. Rachel shot it out of his hand. "War Commander Thigmer," she said, "you are under arrest for the genocide of 50,000 human civilians." "I was following orders," the alien said. "I was a soldier doing my duty." "So were the people you murdered," Rachel replied. "But that didn't stop you from torturing them." Thigmer was dragged to a human ship and placed in a cell. Through the window, he could see his homeworld dying. The planet that had given birth to his species was tearing itself apart. The planet killer weapons continued their work. Thakener core became unstable. Massive earthquakes shook the world. Volcanoes erupted across the surface. The oceans boiled away into space. Dr. Amy Foster watched the destruction from her research vessel. She had designed the weapons that were killing the planet. For 3 years, she had perfected the technology of destruction. How long until the planet breaks apart? She asked her assistant. Approximately 6 hours, Doctor. The core will collapse completely. Amy nodded. 6 hours for 3 billion kroner to experience the terror they had inflicted on others. It seemed fitting. The bombardment continued as the planet died. Human ships surrounded Falconer, making sure no Kroner could escape. Every shuttle that tried to leave the surface was destroyed. Every ship that attempted to flee was hunted down. War Commander Thekmer was brought to Admiral Sullivan's flagship. The alien who had once seemed so powerful and cruel now looked broken and defeated. His whole world was dying before his eyes. "Do you remember the children of New Haven?" Kate asked him. I was following orders," Thekmer repeated. "So was I," Kate said. "My orders are to eliminate the Kroner threat completely. Your species chose genocide. Now you face extinction." The alien broke down. "Please, spare my people. We can change. We can be peaceful." "You had that chance," Kate replied. "You chose to murder children instead. Now your entire species pays the price." Falconer's final moments were broadcast across the galaxy, just as the Kroner had broadcast the New Haven massacre. Other alien species watched as the planet cracked apart. They saw the last Kroner die in the fires of their dying world. When it was over, Falconer was gone. The planet that had housed billions of Kroner was now nothing but asteroids floating in space. The species that had terrorized the galaxy was extinct. Admiral Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, looking at the debris field that had once been the Kroner homeworld. The war was over. Every last Kroner in the galaxy was dead. "What are your orders now, Admiral?" asked Captain Johnson. Kate was quiet for a long moment. The galaxy was safer for humanity now, but the cost had been enormous. The peaceful civilization that had once traded with aliens was gone forever. "Send a message to all human colonies," she said finally. "The Kroner threat has been eliminated. Our people are safe." The news spread quickly through human space. On every world, people celebrated the end of the war. Children could sleep safely, knowing that the aliens who had murdered the families of New Haven were gone. But the victory came with a price. Humanity had become something different during the war. The species that had once sought peaceful cooperation with aliens now viewed the galaxy through the lens of survival at any cost. Other alien civilizations watched the destruction of the Kroner with fear and respect. The humans who had seemed so peaceful and weak had revealed themselves capable of complete genocide when threatened. The Zephyrians, who had once been humanity's closest allies, now kept their distance. They remembered the gentle humans who had lived alongside them on New Haven. Those humans were gone, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. Captain Ben Rogers, who had carried the first news of the massacre to Earth, now commanded a warship in the human fleet. A merchant who had once delivered supplies to peaceful colonies was now a warrior in humanity's military machine. Was it worth it? He asked Admiral Sullivan as they watched the last of Falconer's debris burn up in the system's star. Kate considered the question. 50,000 innocent people had been avenged.